You talk about a lot of the fun stuff of the job. Now, President has a lot of unfun stuff of the job. For instance, we shut this bar. It was my job to tell the students. A lot of hatred. But there was no option. For instance, we made redundancies. It's my job to make people redundant. For instance, there's complaints. It's my job to tell people off. It's my job to investigate officers. My job to investigate staff. It's my job to sit on the panels. How are you going to cope with these things? All three of you, I think, could do the fun stuff. I'm not convinced any of you can do the other stuff. Can you demonstrate how you would?
Yeah, when you're campaigning, when you're trying to get votes from people, the easiest way to get them is by telling them what fun stuff you're going to do from next year. That's an easy way to grab votes. But students don't want to hear about the hard stuff, you know what I mean? But it is there, and it is real. What experience do I have to be able to take on these things? I'm a business student, and part of my course is to a year-long placement. So last year I worked for a whole year out in industry. I worked for EMI Records, and at that time the company was taken over by a private equity firm. And they did an entire review of the company, and they ended up firing 2,000 people in the UK and Northern Ireland. These were people I was working with. I worked at a label called Charisma, okay? This is a label that used to work with, you know, Pink Floyd and things like that, and Peter Gabriel, okay? And a really old, you know, classic label. And the people I worked with there were gone. They were wiped out. People I've been working with all year, okay? So I have seen from the ground end how redundancies affect people. So, you know, the personal struggles they go through, the anxiety, the not knowing, the worrying, you know, and, you know, if you're going to be the president of the student union, you're going to have to be the head of quite a large staff. And, you know, we don't know how this government's view is going to affect things. You know, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. And I think it's really important to have a president who understands the human aspect of what it means to turn around to someone and say, I'm sorry, your job doesn't exist anymore. And, you know, it's not a cavalier thing, and it's not something that should be taken lightly. And I think my experience from seeing how it affects people from the ground up as a colleague, you know, will really help me sort of, you know, find, you know, a bit more sensitivity with that.
Personally, I would bring to this a positive mental outlook, which takes place and is faceted throughout all forms of your life, you know? The way you do one thing, the old Tom Waits once said this, is the way you do everything. And whether that's taking out the rubbish late at night, or telling somebody the realities that you're going to have to let them go, I think it's pretty important to come at this with an intelligence and an integrity.
I'll play the harmonica.
Well, if it makes them laugh.
Quiet, you two. Yeah, I think, you know, there are really harsh sides to any kind of job. And I'm not saying I'm going to come in here and say, party, party, party. I want to be at the top because I want to facilitate all these different, how we can tackle these problems. I don't, and that will involve taking the responsibility of making these decisions that, you know, can't be helped sometimes. But, you know, I believe I've got the seriousness to take control of problems like that.